the most interesting to me. Detroit's looking really well. Rangers are like half and half. Another loss to the Rangers would be huge.
You love this fucking. You want them to not make it so badly.
Oh,
You may get
oh
everything
yeah.
else wrong, but you
There's
want
no
that one
way.
right.
There's no way he's gonna be right though. Come on, it's early. Like, what do you? I understand you're happy, whatever. They're struggling, but they're struggling. It's still a 500 team. Like it's that's the thing. Like they're gonna eventually win some games. Like that's just the
They
way it's gonna
suck.
go. Oh, come on. It's okay. When you say suck, you're letting your heart say that because you don't like them. Like I don't, as much as I don't like Boston, I don't say they suck, right? And as much as I think Boston's overachieving at this point, I don't think they suck. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, but I still think the Rangers suck.
come on. Hi, and welcome to the show. This week, we discuss some struggling teams, including the New York Rangers, St. Louis Blues, and Vancouver Canucks. We share our opinions and criticisms of the salary cap. And last but not least, we discuss the Toronto Maple Leafs' gutsy effort in their last 3 games. Will the Rangers be able to get it done with this core? Will St. Louis decide to cut bait on some older players that are free agents after the year? What would our Fanatics do to save the Canucks if they were the general manager? There's a chill in the air as the season is progressing into the fall, and the 4 Fanatics will share our opinions and perspectives with all of you. So please, take a load off, relax, and welcome to Hockey for Fanatics. What do you guys want to talk about tonight? Because does anyone have anything on the list that you guys want to specifically talk about with regards to topics?
No, we could do like a quick 5 minute update on how the Pens are doing, and then if you want Montreal and quick little things on the
Well,
Leafs, but
okay,
whatever
so
you want.
let me throw some topics at you guys, and then we'll again same old. If you guys want to add more, whatever we can. So I have written down here the Leafs bouncing back despite their goaltending woes. Obviously losing Samsonov to injury and Murray out, uh, showing some gutsiness in their I guess 3 games that we had foreseen doom for them for. And the other stuff I have is basically just around the league, which are some teams that are hot and some teams that are not. So the teams that are hot I had were Boston, Vegas, and New Jersey, which is
What about the
why.
Islanders, baby?
Well, we can talk about the Islanders.
Islanders.
Sure, if you want to include them on the list, we can throw them in there. That's fine. And then who is not would be St. Louis, Vancouver, and Ottawa. And I included those teams because I was trying to figure out which coach would potentially be on the hot seat. I included Ottawa, even though I don't think their coach is at risk, but it's worth having a conversation about if you guys want to.
I
Ottawa's
don't.
coach is not at risk.
I don't
Is that
think
what you
so.
said?
I don't think
It's
so. Only
it's because the new owners they
right,
don't want to start paying it. It's the same
right,
thing with Vancouver. These guys should not be coaching.
right. But that's
No, no.
why. But I guess
Vancouver's coaching situation that's not on him.
But no,
That's
no, no.
not.
But I'm saying they would love to change coach, but then they're going to be paying 3 coaches in 1 year.
Yep.
all right. So let's get into that.
Yeah.
If we just started with that topic, then. So why, Dave? Why do you figure Vancouver's not going to fire their coach?
Well, I
Because
mean, well, so they're already paying what's the name, Travis Green, this year. They're paying Boudreau, so if you fire him, you got to still pay him, and then you got to bring a
So
third guy in to coach.
can can we double
It,
check on that? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think Travis Green was in his contract year. I don't know if he just got paid or he was at the ending of the
I'm pretty sure
contract.
he had signed an extension, but I
It's
don't know.
one or the other. I just don't remember exactly which one it was, but I know what you're saying because that falls under the same thing with the Leafs because the Leafs are still paying for Babcock, and then if they fire Keith, then they would be paying for 2 coaches to sit around doing nothing plus another X number of dollars what it would cost for someone like Trotz. That's big
Yeah,
money.
no, it is, but I mean, MLSE has the money.
so
Sure,
he
why not?
signed a deal in 2021, 2022 for 2 years.
So he had one more year left when they
Yes.
fired him.
So he's being paid
Okay.
this year.
So he's being paid this year.
Yeah, right.
But I don't think it's the coach. Like if you heard Bieska's speech, Like, did you guys hear that? It was phenomenal.
Yeah,
Like
I
I'm
listened to
telling you,
that. Mm.
like Bielska is one of those guys like that you probably hate while he's playing, but you would love him on your team. That guy is incredible. You know,
Agree.
he's just a better Wi-Fi. Your ex guy on the Habs. You know,
Hey, it would
he
be
came from
better.
nothing.
Armor
Much
is only
like
21 years old. Give him some time. Like this guy is gonna potentially be better than Bieksa. I'm just saying.
oh boy,
I'm
oh
just
boy,
saying. Well, you can.
oh boy.
Hey, I'm just saying. It's a little early to be saying. I mean, you
Bielska
can't.
had a fantastic career.
Yeah, you can't knock a
If your
kid who's
Wi-Fi guy
21.
even has half of that, then that's a success story. Like the guy was working at Costco 2 years ago,
Sure,
you
sure.
know, and now he's
But
in the NHL. Like that's fantastic. Come on,
sure, sure.
you
No,
know.
I'm just
But
saying. I
it's
don't
similar
have.
to Bielska. He came from nothing, you know, and he fought his way on. Like they were telling the story how Bielska, during training camp, he got into a fight with one of of a fellow Vancouver player, and he thought he was screwed because he's like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna get kicked off the team, this and this." And then the players were like, "Are you kidding? Do you know who runs our team?" And it's Burke. And he goes, "Burke loves that type of stuff." And lo and behold, Burke hears about it, and they signed him. And it's just like it's incredible, you know. Like this guy came from nothing, and he had a fantastic career for Vancouver. But let's go back to the whole point of this. If you heard his speech in the dressing room, he was talking like it was so obvious that like people were steering him a certain way. They're like, "Yes, talk to these guys. Like these guys are all over the place. There must be infighting, you know, like in-game fighting. Like these guys just need something." And you could tell by his speech, it was like very directed. He was trying to tell them, "Look, guys, these things happen. We fight amongst ourselves, but you need to establish a culture in the dressing room." And even towards the end, he loves Boudreaux. Like he was just raving about him. So I don't know. Like I don't know. Like Boudreaux, like what more do you want from a coach? Like what? I think it's more of a personnel issue than a coaching issue. But at some point, it's always easier to fire the coach than you know trade off half the team. So I think
Yeah, and I
that's
think
where they
we've
are right now.
established, like, I think we talked about Vancouver either last podcast or the one before that, where we talked about the fact that they made some decisions that are longer term, but they might not have been the right ones. And you got a Bo Horvat situation looking at you in the face again. So I don't know. I watched Vancouver last night against Montreal, and that team does not look happy. That's all I know. When I look at their faces on the bench, that's what I'm looking at, right? I'm looking at the eyes of the players, whether they're focused, whether they're intense, whether they're in the game. Horvat is not. He's just not there. He's not. And I'm just like, okay. So to me, they're human beings, right? And momentum is a thing. Like the way there's a feeling in the dressing room, whether it's one that you enjoy coming to work and you enjoy putting in the work together as teammates, and then there's the opposite, where coming to play hockey is not fun. We know Ryan O'Reilly went through that with Buffalo, where he's like, get me out of here. Like I can't stand playing here. I gotta go play hockey somewhere else. And we saw what happened when he got traded to St. Louis and he ignited himself, right? So I just see that. Like when I looked at their faces last night, these guys are just not having fun. They're not at all. So
Oh, Vancouver's a tough market. Don't kid yourself. They're hostile. We've seen when they lose in the finals, they start rioting. It's a hostile environment. I mean, we make fun of the environment here, but it's not easy to play in a Canadian city. So, I mean, you're the captain. You're losing. You have a contract issue coming up. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, we had the. I mean, you can cue the West preview we did. We're going to go over the same stuff. Did they make a mistake when they went signing Miller first? And his contract hasn't even kicked in yet.
yeah, but this is where like an owner's got to be. Look, man, like Tommaso said, this may be a personnel issue more than anything else. I wouldn't even say it's a personnel issue. I just think it's just poorly managed. Like
The owner, but the owner is going through his own issues too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah,
those family issues that came up for him. Yeah,
So who's their G? Is it he's Swedish? I
Ruth.
think we talked
No,
about
no,
him.
wasn't Rutherford the GM right now?
it's Rutherford.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who-
it's Rutherford, the
Oh,
GM.
Rutherford's the
Oh,
president
he's
of
not the
operations
GM.
or whatever.
It's that Swedish guy.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
the ex Penguin guy.
Yeah, but Rutherford is making the decisions, right?
Well, it's like
that's
Pittsburgh, right?
he's the hockey ops, right?
Hockey ops, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
like Burke in
exactly.
Pittsburgh, and then but Hextall is
Yeah,
the GM.
all things go through him. He's the one who's going to establish
Yeah, Rutherford.
what type of teams on the ice and stuff, right?
Dave's right though. If the other guy's the GM, like I don't know. All I know is that if I was in that situation, I don't know if I could do that job. Like
Patrick Alvin is who
if someone's
Dave's talking
making the
about.
decisions, like okay, I can make a suggestion and then you approve it or reject it. Like Rutherford's the one that's being very vocal in the media
Hmm.
about the team and how it's not responding and there's something wrong. Like he's very vocal about it. So maybe that's where my brain went. And he's obviously a very
Well,
experienced GM.
and he's throwing the coach under the bus too. So, and that to me is, you don't do that. I'm sorry, you never do that.
Well,
If you're gonna do that, then you might as well just fire your coach.
well, that's what
Like,
I
give me a
mean.
break.
But
Like,
that's
it's
what I
that point.
mean. Like this is not. I feel bad for the coach, and I would
Hmm.
say that this is not on the coach. This is just a poorly managed situation with the salary cap is a large constraint. It takes a real plan in order to be competitive for honestly a window of if you can create a window for yourself to win a cup of 3 to 4 years, you've done an amazing job managing the salary cap. And that sounds crazy because 3 to 4 years does it goes by in a flash. But most of these teams don't even have that chance because they've never taken the opportunity to build that way. So those windows are probably not even existent for a team that doesn't do the proper build. And I would put Vancouver in
Okay.
that. Like they just don't do that.
So let's have some fun though. Like, really quickly, let's go around the horn here. You're a Vancouver GM, hockey apps, whatever. And really quick thing. What do you do to fix this team? Like right now, what's your stuff to do? Like Giancarlo, what do you
Turn
do?
around the season? Are you talking about
No,
turn around?
no. What are you doing right now? Like, you could pick whatever you want. You could be thinking long term, short term. Like, it's just fun to see like
Yeah. What would you
what your
do?
thinking is.
Yeah,
But
I mean to turn around, like you're saying for this team to make the playoffs.
No. You could do whatever. You could say
No,
for
if you're
just
a
this year,
GM,
but you know
if
what?
you're a
I
GM,
want
yeah.
long term. You pick. You decide what you'd like to do.
If I'm the GM of this team, I completely blow it up. I trade
Okay.
Bo Horvat immediately and get as many assets as I can get. Start looking at moving Pedersen because I don't, or at least Bozer, one of the two.
Okay.
Because you should be able to get something for them. Their value's still there. Probably Bozer. He's definitely older. I would probably hang on to Pedersen. And yeah, and then start moving what you can on defense because like if you can move Ekman Larson, now is the time.
good
Because
luck.
yeah, I know, but imagine trying to do it
Yeah.
in 2 years, right?
This
So
is.
get rid of him now. Tyler Myers is expiring
What
contract. You
about
should be able to
JT
get.
Miller,
Yeah.
Giancarlo? What about JT
They're not
Miller?
getting rid of JT Miller. If they can, do it.
Well,
For me, as many assets as they can get rid of, they gotta just completely tear it down. Because besides
Yeah.
Demko, I don't like anything on this team.
well,
Anything.
Hughes,
Oh,
Hughes,
and
Wow.
sorry, and Hughes,
Okay.
and
yeah,
Hughes. I love Hughes too.
Hughes,
Between the
Pedersen,
two of
and
them,
Demko are really the only
no, I don't
three
even
guys.
put Pedersen on that list. I just have those
Wow.
two
Eh?
on my list.
Okay,
I
well, the
just
reason
have
why,
Hughes and
okay,
Demko.
I understand. I would not want to sell on Pedersen yet because I would probably try to, like, 23 years old, it's still a little early to cut bait on a guy. I understand what you're saying to take it down to the studs. I think that I wouldn't have a problem keeping those three guys and trying to move the rest. But man, you've just created work for yourself, right? Like,
You're starting all over. That's tough,
Well,
man.
but Pedersen's interesting because he's at 7.3 million right now, and he has another
Hmm.
year next year, and you could probably get something very good for him because he has been really, he's been decent. He definitely hasn't been horrible. So I mean, in the sense of just trying to get as many assets as you can, now would be the time. But I
So
don't know what this team's doing.
you're basically saying that this core is not one to build around, and we need to start over, basically, right?
That's what I would say as a GM. I
Okay.
don't see this core winning a cup. I
Okay,
don't.
Dave. What about you, buddy?
Well, man, it's I love to rebuild. I love that stuff, but you're kind of stuck with 4 or 5 contracts here. How are you going to move them all and rebuild? It's all. I think they're in the position where they got to win now. And if you're going to
Wow.
try to win now, I think you got to get rid of Besser and keep Horvat. He's your captain. He's your heart and soul. Unless, like Mike saw in his face, maybe he doesn't want to be there anymore. Who knows? Maybe there's something going on in that change room that It's just toxic because it looks like they have a bunch of individual guys. They just don't have a cohesive unit. And I don't like their defense at all. I think
But
what's
that's
the
what I
name?
mean. So, do you
No,
really
but
think they have enough to win now, though?
I don't think they do. I'd be blowing the whole thing up, but I
Mm.
think they're stuck with some of these
Yeah, this
contracts.
is a big mess. Like Dave is trying to be realistic. Like if he became the GM, he would be like, yeah, I need to move JT Miller, but who's gonna take JT Miller from you?
Miller, Larson, like these are guys that you're kind of stuck with, I think.
It's a big problem. Yeah.
You got Connor Garland, great. Okay, Connor Garland's a good guy. So Mikhailev's a good player, but at 5 million each for the next few years, I think you're kind of stuck with this team. And you got to make the decision. Do you want Horvat or not? Because if you want him, you got to get rid of someone like Besser or Pedersen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you got the
That's tough.
goalie. You got a decent number one D, we'll call him, and Hughes. Again, you got some good individual guys, but I don't know. Maybe there's some deep issues with this team that we don't know about. What about you, Mike?
I don't know, man. I'm with you. Like it's really tough when you look at this roster. It's just uh, when you see it, it's like, what was the plan? Like
Yeah.
it's like what were you guys doing? Like when was your opportunity to win supposed to be? If it was supposed to be now, I'm sorry, it just wasn't. Like, and that's why I looked at that JT Miller signing. I'm like, what were you guys thinking? Like that was the biggest. And I remember screaming about it. This isn't anything new. But once you made that decision, you've pretty much committed to winning now, I would say.
Yeah.
So, and is the team strong enough to win now? No, you're not. And that's why I said, like, what prospects are coming up that are gonna push you over the edge when you're stacking
They
up
don't.
against? Yeah. So I don't know,
They have
man.
nothing coming.
Honestly, if someone, this is gonna sound crazy, but if someone were to offer me the GM job, I'd say, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. You can have it.
Well,
I'll
you
work
know,
Wow,
somewhere
that's
else. I
funny.
swear to God, I would. Why would? Like this is gonna be a mess. It's a mess. Like
but the, yeah,
I see what you mean.
but the thing too is that even if you want to move someone like Besser, someone like even Ekman Larson, the problem is that because of the salary cap issues and so many teams are right up against the cap, how do you make hockey trades anymore? It's like the
It's
whole
so hard.
system is flawed. The NHL is just flawed. You cannot. There's no wiggle room. They should definitely put a luxury tax. I know we've
Yeah.
gone through this before off the podcast, but I mean, it's not right. The way the league is currently just
Yeah. You really can't
it's
make
hard to
mistakes
go
long
for it.
term. You can't make
Yeah,
mistakes
you
long
can't.
term. Yeah.
I just think they're stuck with this roster. I don't. How do you get rid of these guys? Sure, you can trade Pedersen, but you got to trade that 7.3 to someone else for what? A whole bunch of prospects, maybe. But someone's got to fit that 7.3 into their roster. Unless, how do you do this? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
you're taking back another bad contract, right? So I
I,
don't know.
I know,
I
but
agree with
then
what you're
you're
saying.
stuck with a whole bunch of other guys. It's like you got to get rid of a whole
You got to
bunch of
find
contracts or none.
you got to find the right partner. And if you're gonna trade
Uh-huh.
Pedersen, if I'm gonna entertain that idea of trading Pedersen, is a young player, I would hope that the return would be, if I'm trying to maintain my win now position and I'm trading a Pedersen, I would hope to get a couple of young players that are not making, like they have some potential, but they're either on an entry level deal or on their second year, right? And it's affordable, right? I don't know. I don't even know. You'd have to
Or
find the right partner. You'd have to find some
like
players.
Tomasa said, you also got to take contract too.
Yeah,
That's I don't know.
but so on my perspective, I'm not as doom and gloom as you guys. I would be tanking for sure. Like especially since there's this prized
Yeah, sure.
superstar waiting for you. Just you're already bad. You're already terrible. Let's just go for it. You know what I mean? Like what? Like this is the year to do it. So I don't agree with you guys with the JT Miller thing. I think there's going to be people who would still be interested in JT Miller. If what you would have to take back is exactly what Dave was saying. You know, it's going to be impossible. Like maybe the Rangers. I know Rangers were really intrigued and they were kicking tires on JT Miller during the trade deadline. I don't know. Maybe there's a deal
Yeah,
to
but
be
they
made.
moved
You
on
bring
now. They
back
got
a
Trocheck.
Kako.
They got Trocheck now. Like that was before, like they had maybe earmarked some money because they wanted Miller to be their guy
Well,
down the
maybe
middle.
you take back Trocheck. You may like who knows? Like there's got to be there's going to be a deal, but is it the right deal? You don't want to hamstring yourself again and again and again for a
Yeah.
couple years just for short-term solutions. I think you could trade a guy like Horvat easily and focus on defense. Bring back a young stud defenseman, someone who can, you could build around with Hughes. And like that's what you need. If you're gonna tank and you're gonna get like hopefully a good draft pick and it's an offensive draft pick, why don't you go and trade some of these guys like a Brock Besser for again more defensive help, more something, a different look on your top six? Because right now these guys aren't doing it. These guys aren't cutting it.
Maybe a guy
You
like
cut off
this
terms
is
like
gonna
Peterson. I don't know.
this is gonna sound crazy, but maybe go after a guy like Seth Jones, right?
Who
I
you
know.
talking about? The Canucks?
Yeah,
Canucks go for Seth Jones, huh?
yeah. All I'm
But the
saying
only
is,
problem is,
yeah,
what is Chicago getting? Like, what are you
Want
offering
Pedersen.
Chicago?
They would
You're
want
talking like a
Pedersen, not
Pedersen?
they'll
Miller.
take a
Yeah,
Pedersen. Yep, they
yeah,
would.
they would want Pedersen,
Yeah,
not Miller.
they wouldn't want Miller, that's
No,
for sure.
no.
No.
Miller's
But a
finished.
Pedersen, you
No one's
got their
gonna take.
attention for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to change the complexion of the team, and again, I'm not saying I would do this because I would already, I told you I already refused the GM job. But if you're gonna make that call, I'm gonna say, okay, well, I'd rather build in front of Demko and put a Jones in there, plays 30 minutes a night, you know. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I like offensive players too, so seeing a Pedersen go, even though if he's not a elite guy, I think he's a very good player. Scores points. Not easy to find those guys either. So it's tough
No.
to say. But yeah, I think you're right, Tomas. I think you make a good point. Like the tanking thing, they're already here. Uh, the players are already probably, I'm not gonna say checking out, but it's easy for them to mail it in for the rest of the year. And if they
And
get a
the other,
Bedard,
you know what?
pretty good
The
reward.
interesting thing though is, what about Demko? I know like that's the last person you trade on this team because he's like fantastic, but he's got an incredible contract. He's only getting
Uh,
paid $5 million for the next
yeah,
couple of years.
no.
You're
See,
not
when
going to win anytime soon.
no. Well, the thing
Why? Like,
is,
I don't know.
but this goes back to what I was saying. Like, he would be a great piece to trade off, but the problem is, then you're still stuck with all these contracts. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if they weren't stuck with all these long-term deals, they could easily trade, let's say, Demko, because he's going to be, I think, 27 next year or something. So it's not like he's still a young goalie, right? If you're going to win now, then yeah, he's great. If you're looking long-term, then maybe Demko is a piece to trade. But again, you're stuck with so many long-term
It's true.
deals.
Typically,
There's too
goalies don't get
many.
a return in a trade, but yeah, it's a good point, Dave. It's a good point.
It's tough though because I think you can get a haul for Demko. Like his contract's incredible. He's young. He's incredible. Like he just everything you want. Any team would want that guy. But the problem is, we keep saying we want to build a team. What do you want? You want a franchise center. You want a franchise defenseman, a franchise goalie. Blah 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 blah. Okay, you got one. Why are you getting rid? Why
Well,
do you want to
okay,
get rid of him?
okay. Well,
It's crazy.
the reason
I don't
why you'd
know.
want to get rid of him is you really have to ask yourself, when are we going to be able to win? And maybe he's still young. I wouldn't say
Yeah,
I would
and
be
that's the thing.
100% on board, but I would always try to find out what the interest was, right? Like, I'm not saying
Sure.
I'd shop him, but you have conversations with GMs to see what's out there, because you need to do your due diligence and find out, what you could do. So
But I think they got to know, are they like, in their eyes, are they underachieving badly? Because they obviously thought they were a playoff team.
Yep,
There's no
for
way they would have
sure.
signed Miller.
Oh
So
yeah.
they must think they are good enough to compete. So I don't see them throwing the towel in yet. I just don't. The only guy they might throw in the towel to is Horvat if they think there's nothing there. They'd be dumb if they let him go to UFA and leave.
no,
But here's a
No, I
question, all
can't
you
see them
guys. We were
doing that.
talking about the Rangers, right? We're talking about the Rangers with Kane. Now you brought up JT Miller. I didn't realize the Rangers have no cap space left. I thought they had tons of space, but where are they going to add anybody?
I
They
don't know.
have to move contracts.
I know, but like I thought they had tons of space, but apparently they don't.
Well, I think we talked about it because I think Kane has said something about having the Rangers on his list, so they would have to, find a way to do it. And I'm just looking at their
Well,
roster here.
remember, it's only a 1 year contract for
It's only
Kane,
one
right?
year, but
So
my point
it's
is they
five
got to
million.
And
move him.
Chicago would probably eat half. Yeah.
they need half, and then you bring
Mhm.
in another team, so it comes into 2.5. That's what
They,
you would have to do.
That's the
they
right thing
probably
to do.
have to trade Lindgren. That'd probably be a start. Good young defenseman, and then maybe even a good row would be on that, and then there's the cap right there.
Well,
It's
if I'm
6.6.
Chicago, I'm asking for Capo or I'm asking for Lafreniere. I'm asking for one of those guys.
Oh yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
I
hundred
think the
percent.
Rangers are going to get fleeced this year, and this could be one of those. They went all in and they're
Yeah.
screwed because
It's
I could
possible.
see Kane going to Buffalo next year, and the Rangers are left holding the bag.
I really don't like that Trocheck deal. I think they just had money and they figured let's spend it,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
they should have held off because I don't know. Like Rangers, I think that's the problem when you
7
you
years.
come to the show too soon. Like I think Rangers just had a phenomenal year last year. They were just like, okay, we're here now. Let's push us over the top. And I think they rushed that one. That decision to me seems like a very rushed decision. I think spending
Well,
that money
yeah,
somewhere else would have been better.
maybe, but I guess Tomas, what they're doing is they're looking at it and saying better now. Like our time to win is now. That's what they're saying. Like I don't like their
Why?
long term. I don't.
They're still young.
Well, I'll tell you why. No, they're not. Panarin's 31. Like they're not
They're
young.
half and half. They
Kreider's
have their really
31.
young pieces and
These
then their old
guys
guys.
these guys are not going to be that way forever. Zibanejad's 29, and I know Zibanejad's still going to be good for a few years. I'm not saying he's finished, so he's got a little bit more mileage left. But you really needed those younger players to start to pick it up. Like those guys, those are the guys that really have to pick it up for the Rangers. Like we said,
Hmm.
they really need to start to blossom into the players that they can be, and it has to happen in this year. And they probably projected that based on how many games they're going to get, and okay, this is what we're expecting from you. And the Trocheck signing, yeah, maybe like you can also look at it in a positive way. Like they're not putting those kids on, like throwing them in the deep end. They're giving them that extra support, right? Because you're getting a solid centerman. I know the coach likes him too because he coached him when he was in Florida. So he's got that trust in him. It's not a horrible like cap number, but that term, man, the Rangers are going to be in big trouble if they don't win, which I understand. Like you take your shot, at least they're taking their shot, so I can admire that. But they better win in the next year, or they're in trouble. They're in
Yeah.
trouble. Yeah. Like,
Why year?
well,
What's coming up in a year
well,
that's
I'm
going to be?
well, I'm looking at their roster, and Lafreniere is gonna want to get signed. Like all these guys are gonna
I
be,
see what you're saying.
they're gonna have to sign, right? And they're
So the
gonna,
RFAs, once
yeah,
they pop up, they're the ones that need to be paid, and
right,
that's where your cap room's going to be gone. I see what
right.
you're saying.
So
It
Yeah.
is. They're gonna be in the Canucks situation with these
Hmm.
long-term deals.
so it's okay,
Zibanejad.
yeah.
Miller is a free or RFA too, Keandre Miller, and or did they sign him already?
No,
No,
he's an
right?
Uh,
RFA
he's
He's an
an
coming
RF.
up.
RFA.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
RFA.
one
think I
year
think he's
RFA.
gonna ask for at least 3 million. That's like the ballpark I see with him. At least 3 million for him.
12 either RFA or UFA guys next year. So you're
Yeah,
gonna see a
Yeah,
totally different team.
yeah. They better hope
Yeah.
that
Yep.
some of these
yeah.
guys.
That
And they,
Trocheck signing is gonna haunt them.
It's a bit
I'm
much.
serious. I
It's a
don't
bit
like their
much.
team.
It's a bit much. It's a bit much.
I don't like anybody on their team. I really don't. I don't. I think Shesterkin's overrated. I think they're the best. Their best position is defense. Other than defense, I don't know. I don't like their team. I think their offense is horrible. Like
Ah,
Kreider never is going to get 50 goals again, and that to me was a huge fluke. Zibanejad is not a first line defense or centerman.
yeah,
They're
yeah. I won't argue those points. They're they're
oh, their
they're
their
not
prospects are nothing
they're
special.
not they're not overly. Yeah, you make a valid point. You make a valid point. Like it's not
Like
that
Lafreniere, Schittle, and
shit.
Crapo, they're not. You know,
Lafreniere. I mean, that's how the Rangers are going to win. If Lafreniere can achieve any type of taking a step, then they're going to be better. They're going to be tougher to
yeah.
beat. But I've gone on record saying I don't think he's anything special. I know Tommaso gets mad at me for saying stuff like that, but I don't see it yet. But that's how the Rangers, they have to have those guys materialize in order for them to be a team that I would consider a contender. They have a chance at a cup. They do
yeah.
if there are some updates or upsets rather. but I don't think I would anoint them as a contender, like an elite contender. You know,
Yeah. Well,
just
some of
because.
us did. I did, but I mean, I was under this. I was really thinking they were going to go after, and they still might. They're going to go after Patrick Kane.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah,
if
but
they had,
if they
does
add,
Kane
yeah.
really push them over the top that much? Like, they're still like,
The
why,
guy's a 100-point
and
man, Giancarlo.
he's
yeah, but then like they have Jimmy Vesey on their first line right now. Jimmy Vesey is a journeyman. He wasn't even able to make half the teams, and he's skating on their first line right now. That tells you all you need to know about how
that's a good point.
Crapo is, and Shittle is, and the
No,
Laffer is, and
that's a good point. But
Not
that is their
Kravtsov.
weakness, right? That their
They have no
weakness is scoring.
forwards.
So
They
you
have
know
Panarin.
Yeah.
they're gonna add somebody, and I think they're gonna go hard after Kane. I really
Yeah,
I
do.
really,
'Cause
really like their defense. Don't get me wrong. Truba, Fox, like these are just Truba is one of the
I
hardest
like
guys to
I
play
like that
against in the league.
Schneider kid. That Schneider kid is,
Schneider is good.
yeah.
Lindgren is pretty good. Miller is another one. He's like a mini Truba. So like they have like two guys like that. Like their defense is very hard to play against, and that's why Shesterkin looks so good is because of the defense. Put Shesterkin on a team that's bad defensively, and you'll see how bad of a goalie he is. He's not good. He's
Okay,
very
okay.
overrated.
Come on. That's
He's
not that.
very, very overrated.
Okay, you
Who
could
are we
say,
I'm
talking
being
about here
serious.
now?
you could say,
Please
yeah,
tell me you're not talking about Sturkin.
yeah, he is.
Yeah, we're talking about shit Sturkin.
Oh my god. Okay.
So, okay, for you to say overrated, okay, hey, that's a hot take. He's overrated. Okay, but for you to say he's shit, that's a bit much. Like
He had a fantastic season last year, and again, that's because of the defense. But it was one
Ooh,
good year. That's it. This
okay.
year, he doesn't look like anything out of the ordinary. He doesn't have bad numbers, but he doesn't look like he looked like last year. And I don't know. You're gonna see he's
okay,
not gonna have a long career of being this top five goalie in the league. Like he can enjoy his Vezina because he won't win another one. That
well,
was his one and only.
okay, come on, it's a little early to say that, but I mean, it's possible. I
I'll
mean,
hold those takes. I will happily hold those takes. You can remind me when he doesn't win another Vezina that I called that.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
That that's winning a Vezina is never easy anyways. You gotta remember that. There's
Well, it's
not
it's
many
easier than it's
goalies.
ever been because there's no good goalies anymore. There's a handful of goalies that could potentially win it. So it's whoever has the
Mhm.
best defensive structure and the best wins and the best percentages ends up winning the Vezina. Like if you look at the last couple winners of the Vezina, the trophy isn't what it used to be. It's not like when Broder was there and Broder won the Vezina because Broder was the best
No,
goalie
no,
in the
no, no,
league
no. Come on,
year after year.
New Jersey was a complete defensive shell. Come on, you can't. As much as I'm not taking away from Brodeur here, but New Jersey was a defensive team that was
Of
built
course they were. But I mean, he
around.
was
No,
a great
but
goalie himself too, right?
yeah,
Of course.
Giancarlo's on to something though. Like his what's his name? Kucherov. Number one bullshit.
Yeah.
Remember when he argued that Vasilevsky didn't win the Vezina over Marc-Andre Fleury, right? Um, the number one goalie doesn't always win the Vezina. So
Yeah. Sure.
from what Giancarlo is saying, I think there's some truth to it. Sure, I think there's definitely truth to it. I think we were just talking about this earlier today. Like you put a guy like Vezi or any of those guys on a team like Carolina that has the defensive structure to be sustainable all throughout the whole year, you're going to see a goalie thrive 100%, right? But I don't know. You put Vasi on the Leafs. Is he winning a Vesna? Hell no. He'll never win a Vesna, right? Because they just give up too many glorious opportunities every game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that's
sure
kind
the
of the
team
point I
has.
was making too.
Yeah, yeah, but that's. I think it goes hand in hand, right? Like when you have a goalie going back to Brodeur, a goalie like that is an elite goaltender, and you build that structure in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
You're committed to that, and that goalie's going to be there for you when the chips are down, and that's how you're built, I suppose, right? But those days are. I don't really see that happening as much anymore. Like maybe the Canadians would be the closest comparable, but I wouldn't say that they were anywhere close to being as defensive minded as New Jersey. But New Jersey also had some guys that would kill you offensively too. Like they were sneaky, like Eliash and those guys, and even Claude Lemieux. when he was there, it was clutch in the playoffs, right? So it's hard. It's hard to. I don't think there's a comparable um, in modern day times. But I mean, back to Shesterkin, like we were talking to him also before you joined, like they. I'm not considering them I consider them a contender, but they're still on the like on the fringe. Like I wouldn't call them a pretender. I would call them a contender, but I would not call them an
Rangers?
an
Oh,
elite.
we're talking
Yeah,
about Rangers, right?
yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't consider them an elite contender because, and Giancarlo brought up some good points. Like offensively, Kreider, Zibanejad, like they're good players, but are they like star players? Are they that good? Like I think you can stop those guys, and then the guys underneath them, like Lafreniere and Kako, like they really need to step up in order for them to be that much better. And then Dave made a comment that they're in position to add a guy like Patrick Kane, right? So if they add a guy like Patrick Kane, then we're talking. I think now you can. I would put them in the conversation for sure as like in the conversation at least for I wouldn't know if I'd call them elite, but they definitely strengthened their case to win a cup.
For
Yeah.
sure.
I'd just like
Oh
to
yeah.
see what that trade skeleton will look like because without hurting their depth or their defense, because as great as Kane would be, he's kind of another Panarin, and I don't know how
Oh yeah, I
good
forgot about
having
Panarin. Yeah, he's
a
another.
Panarin and a Kane
Uh, uh,
together are gonna
you,
be
I
like.
think
And
you'd have
having
to start. I think you'd have to start with Kako. I think that's where it'd be, right? Like Kako's their number one right winger, and if you want Kane to be on that team, like I don't know, it's weird right now the way that they've allocated their offense, right? Because they have Zibanejad and Panarin on the first line, and with
well, no,
Kako,
Panarin's on the second line now.
last night he was together with Zibanejad. Did they change it up already? Maybe. But as of last night, it was Panarin, Zibanejad, and Kako the first line. Kreider was actually on the third line, which was pretty crazy. They have the kids all on the second line, and I don't know. Kane, like if you bring a Kane into the mix, I don't know. I think Dave's right. I think that would, of course, give them a huge boost offensively.
Hmm.
But I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't see much of the Islanders game, but I know Laughing, Schittle, and Crapo are like their staple third line. They've been their staple third line. They were playing them as their second line, and they had Kreider on the third line.
Well, it's similar to the Leafs, right? Like for example, like they say Camp is the fourth line, but everyone knows it's the third line. I think the Islanders, I mean, sorry, the Rangers are similar. They have two lines that are you could be call your second or third line. It makes no difference.
Yeah, that's a fair point. They kind of just roll those lines.
Yeah, I think sometimes they do that like mind games too, right? Where they're like,
Yeah, absolutely.
the line matching on the other side. There's no, real like, who do you stop, right? So that other line is less of a checking line, more of an offensive line kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Third line is intending to score, but anyway.
If they don't get more out of those three players, I mean, those are top. Well, Schittle I think was a top 25 pick, but Laughing and Crapo were
Yeah, they're top three
what
picks or
1 and
whatever.
2,
Yeah, yep.
and
Yeah.
Lafreniere
then
was
they have
one. Yeah,
Krapsov was I think a 9 or a 10. So I mean, they have all these like really high picks, and they're not turning out.
yeah, they
So
need them. They
that
definitely need them to
that's
turn
the
out.
difference for
Yeah.
me. If these guys turned out, then the Rangers would be probably the best team in the league. Like having a first overall pick and a second overall pick, like you would think like you're golden,
Yeah,
right?
I remember they gave up on Buscevich as well, right? Buscevich
Bu-
They did. You're
was
right.
Close
yeah, he
enough.
was yeah, he
Buchnevich?
was a
Yeah.
Bushnevich.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was
David was an ex-Leaf.
No, he was a Blues, or no, he was on the ex-Leafs. What do you mean?
no, he was never a Leaf.
I'm thinking about Bolsherman.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bolshevik? Oh,
the defenseman.
Yeah, Buchnevich
French,
was
French.
yeah. He was a
Yeah,
blue though.
Bushne-
You're right. And he
yeah,
was also a
he
He's a
still
Ranger.
blue
is.
now.
Yeah.
He's a blue now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing okay.
Yeah,
He's
but
doing just fine
he
there.
was a third round pick, like Buchnevich. Like I'm just checking him
Hmm.
out. Like it's not like he was a highly like I see what Giancarlo's saying. Like those top 5 picks, like those guys really got to turn out for you, right? And we've talked about this
For
before.
sure.
Like when you finish those years low, hey, it's not your fault that you're not finishing in a year with a guy like Bedard or Fantilli.
Yeah, yeah.
You got Lafreniere. Time is ticking on him though. Like he does need to turn a
Yeah,
corner at some point. He does. He needs to turn a corner.
he's starting to remind me of Drouin a bit.
Yeah, don't get me started with that guy.
Uh,
'Cause, I mean,
He's an amazing third liner. Like in the playoffs, when I was watching him against Pittsburgh, like I was like, "Holy crap, man! This guy's annoying to play against. He is very, very good." But I don't ever imagine that this guy makes it as a second or third line player. It's still early,
yeah.
but it's just
I
I
know.
just don't see it. I really don't see it in him.
I don't see it yet either.
But he's very
Some
physical,
guys
very
are late
physical.
bloomers, yes, but I as of now I don't see it with him. But
And we were talking about like everyone's different, okay? I'm not saying that this is like a science, it's like a formula everyone's like this, but there is a number of games that you would need to find your way in the NHL based on how you're going to impact the game, right? Like if you play, and he's right now at 150 NHL games, and I think when we were doing that, when we were having that chat about it, and we did a little bit of that analysis on like the past, it's between 150 to 200 games. Like you should really find your game before the 200 game mark. So he'll be what he is before the end of this year. Like that's got to be what it is for him. Like and maybe at the very latest it'll be the year after. There are some examples of late bloomers like we found. Like McKinnon was one of the guys that materialized into an elite player well after they had established or well after they had drafted him. Um, so I mean, there's always that hope, but that it's like a very low percentage that happens, right? So we're just playing the odds when we say that he's not going to materialize that way, right? When we say that, because usually when you see the other guys, they hit their stride really quickly. They get to the NHL, they're like, yeah, this is my role. I'm an offensive player, and it works for them, right
yeah,
away.
but who are we talking about? Like
To-
that's like the 1 percentile.
No,
Like
no,
that's
no.
it.
There's lots. There's lots, dude. Look,
Really?
yeah, yeah. Look at all the young
Go ahead.
players. Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas. All these guys find their game. They find. I'm not saying they're those guys the minute they step on the ice, but we did the analysis. It's less than 150 games where they become that player.
I think the difference is that Lafreniere went first overall, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
Expectations are automatically there when you go first overall.
For sure. For
and,
sure.
and McKinnon had decent years. It just I don't know how good. I don't recall those early Colorado teams, but I mean
They
Lafreniere's
were
got some.
above average though for
That's I
McKinnon.
mean. Well, no, I mean the line mates he had. I don't recall who he played with those first 2, 3, 4 years. But I mean Lafreniere's had his chance to play on the top line, and he's just not producing. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's
you want that.
those drafts are.
It's
Yeah,
true.
I know, but sometimes those drafts are just not deep. Like compared last year, the draft we just had, and compared to the one coming up,
Yeah.
we can say, oh, you had the fifth overall pick, you should hit, but sometimes it's just not there. Sometimes it's
For
Yeah,
just not
sure.
there.
But
that
look at New
2020
Jersey
draft was weird.
Devils. The Devils are another example of that, right? Like Nico
Yep.
Hischier and then Jack Hughes. Like they weren't, they're not Connor McDavid
Yep.
or Austin Matthews, but they're playing right. They're playing really good hockey right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Sometimes it just takes time for these guys to develop. You can't really, throw them out just after a couple of years, especially these little guys. I know we keep going back to it, but I know the league is more it's more for them, right? You don't need to be the 6'2", 220-pound monster in the NHL anymore. Like that size is not everything, but it is still a grown man's game. And when you're like a little guy,
Yeah, you're
it's
physically
harder to
immature.
keep up with them.
Yeah, you're physically
For sure.
immature
So it
too.
takes
Yeah.
time to grow and get comfortable in your own weight and
Yeah.
get stronger and get more to adapt to the NHL, which is a very it's the best league in the world for a reason, right?
He sure is a good example, actually, of a guy. Like I've picked him in pools and been disappointed because you're expecting him to take that step, right? Like he had decent years his first couple of years, and then he just never took a step. And the last 2 years, he's starting to round into the form of the guy that it looks like he's going to be, which to me, I don't.
Last year, yeah, but 2 years ago, I think he was
Well,
hurt
well, that's
for
what
most
I'm
of the year.
including. I'm including this year in that because
This year, yeah,
he's got
yeah.
14 points in 12 games. Like he's a good offensive player. Like those are guys that and obviously it's still early this year, but so far he's continued the trend that he started last year, where he finished with 60
Yeah.
points in 70 games, right? So I don't know if I would call him a true number one. Like I don't think I would want to, but the guy's a legit top six player at this point, which is
I
fine.
think top six is as far as I would go. He's definitely not a number one, at least not
What
right
Not
now.
on a
What
cup
about
team.
Jack Hughes? Jack Hughes, isn't he getting paid? Didn't he just get paid
He
Yeah.
got a
like
big
recently?
contract. Yep.
Million.
Yeah.
8 million
So these
for
boys are
8 years.
getting
What is it?
paid, you know.
9 year, 8 years. I mean, you got 8 by
Yeah.
8.
And then who's the other one? Jesper Bratt. I think he bet on himself this year.
Yeah.
Like this was
Five,
going to
five and
be
a
his
half.
thing.
He's at
Yeah.
like 5.5.
So and now he's playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
So he's gonna he's gonna be cashing in pretty nicely in the off season this year. So good for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jesper Bratt is actually, he's a great player. He had an amazing year last year, and he was like a 6th or 7th round guy. So I mean, they really lucked out with Jesper Bratt. I really like the way he plays. He's a really good player, and I don't like to admit that Devils have anything good.
This is the only sport, guys, where we have to be mathematicians, and it's not. It takes the fun out of it. It really does.
It does,
Instead
for
of talking
sure.
about
It's a
how
constraint.
great these
Yeah.
teams are, like you think about baseball. Who are the Jays gonna add this year? Who can? Instead, we were talking about here. Oh, you got to fit this guy in, and it's
No,
not fun. It
it
takes
is
the
not
fun out.
good. It does. It's not good for the fans. We've talked about this before. It's not good for the fans. It's a massive constraint. And as fans, it's like I remember being a kid and you always felt like your team had a chance to win every year, even if that wasn't true. There was a feeling that it's going to be better this year, or it's going to be different this year. But now, man, I don't know if it's just me getting older. I don't think it's what it is. I think we're just more knowledgeable when you see, okay, like because there were always budgets. Think of it that way, right? There were always budgets even before the cap. The team would always say, "This is how much we're going to spend on salaries." We might not have known about it, but it was always there. And then it was always well documented that the teams that spent the most didn't ever win. Like it was always a joke that the Rangers would go out and buy all these UFAs like Gomez and Drury, and they never won, right?
Yeah.
And Brad Richards, and Bobby Holik, they just kept on signing everybody, and it was never materializing for them. So, but budgets always existed, and again, year to year as fans, we would just say, "Oh, it's going to be better this year." But now that we do see those numbers and they are drawn in front of us, then you start to look at it a little bit differently and say, "Oh my God, like this isn't going to work out. Like this, how did we end up in this mess?" You know what I mean? And
I
that's
know, but I just don't like how it skewed the system. Like a guy like Mitch Marner is a perfect example. Like, do you know how it would like for all when growing up, you would love a guy. He was born in Toronto. He's a Toronto boy. He's as skilled as any player we've ever seen growing up. And there's fans that hate him right now because he's making $11 million. That's it. If it was like back in the day, did we ever talk about Doug Gilmore's contract or Wendell Clark's contract
no,
or how
no.
much Savan Lefebvre made or Potvin made? No, no one ever cared. No one ever said nothing. But now what you make matters. We look at you differently based upon what you're making and
Mhm.
how that contract situation played out. And
Oh,
and
sure.
that's I think that's unfortunate. I think it's really unfortunate how things have changed. Like if we aren't talking about the contract stuff,
Mhm.
I think it's a completely different situation with Mitchell Marner. Like he's looked upon differently. I think he's got like I don't know. That guy's really weird. Every time you see a camera in front of him, he looks like he's got like the stress of the world on him. Like he's
Uh,
I don't know. He just
But
doesn't
this
look right. That kid.
that can go for any team, right? I mean, you look at Draisaitl. Like, how much is that guy gonna make next contract? He deserves to be paid
Oh
at
yeah.
least second or third highest in the league. But it's like then
Mhm.
it's like you might lose him, or you might lose other guys. Your team's gonna get worse. It's just not. It's not a great topic. It's not what we should be talking about. How's that? I listen to other
100%.
I listen to other people or sports and sports talk shows, and when I'm listening about football or any other sport, they're never talking to this degree in terms of contracts and salary caps, and I just don't get why the NHL continues to go down this road. I know you keep your own, might go up $1 million next year, might go up 2 million, but so is every other contract. So really, it
Well,
cancels each other out.
It's
unfortunately,
all
it's gonna.
relative, right?
But it's gonna require like another labor stoppage if the NHLPA, because it's all it really is they're just keeping salaries down, right? Like that's
It
that's
is,
all that it
but
is,
Mike,
right?
the top teams in the league that are carrying the weight, whether it's the Rangers, all the Canadian teams, they could say, "Listen, we want a luxury tax. We're willing to spend money. It's gonna go okay. It's
Yeah.
gonna go filter down to the rest of the league. So who cares? It's coming out of
Exactly.
their pockets." I don't know. There's got to be
Yep.
something
I won't
where.
argue with you, but I mean
Well, you
they've been
look at the
reluctant to do that.
Canucks, but look at the Canucks example. We're like, okay, you want to try to rebuild this team. How the hell are you going to rebuild this team when you're stuck with all these money? You could say, well, that's your fault. You sign all these deals, but then you're like, but if we don't sign these guys, we lose them, and then we don't get the revenue, we don't get the crowd. So it's not a good spot. The
Well,
sport
that
is
you're
not in a good
right, but
spot.
that's where you're now you're talking smart though. Like if you were an owner and if you were a GM, like you really got to talk to Bettman about that and say this is not the way we want it. But the problem is if it's more of a business now than it ever was, and if someone's making money, they're like, whatever. As long as the fans don't riot and don't, create an uproar, then we're good, right? And that's
No, but the problem with that, what you just said, is that's the complete opposite. That's exactly what the owners wanted. Bettman works for the owners, right? So those negotiations were based upon what the owner demanded. The whole
yeah, fair.
like
Yeah.
cap is exactly what the owners wanted, and they got it. And here's the thing, though. I think this is where sports is going. NBA is one of the richest sports right now going, and NBA is talking about a hard cap. They're talking about doing something similar to what the NHL is going on. So that tells you where sports is going.
Yeah.
This whole luxury tax system, this whole stuff like that. I don't know if that's going to be around much longer because
Mm.
owners are just getting smarter and they want to take control of their league again.
Well, it's just keeping their costs down at the end of the day, right? That's all that it is. And it's just it's just creating that here's a finite amount of money for you to spend, and the reality is there's no way. But I mean there are ways around the cap like we've already talked about like the LTIR stuff. So and I think that a lot of these contracts that they're signing, like we've talked about the Kadri deal, I can't see Kadri playing out the duration of that contract. So I'm not saying he's going to get hurt or whatever, but do we really honestly think he's going to be a 39-year-old guy playing? I don't know. Something smells off to me. So it's going to be interesting to see, but we've seen the salary cap kind of take on all of these little tactics that the GMs and owners or whoever is employing, like whether it's signing these long-term deals that guys are just never going to see the end of, or putting a guy on LTIR and then the playoffs come and you were able to make your roster that much better. These are just the strategies that they're using in order to make their teams the
Shenanigans,
best.
Yeah.
more like it.
I don't like it either, but
I hate it.
that's the game though.
Also
You know,
takes away it takes away from a hockey trade as well. It's very rare that I
yep,
see someone say, "Oh, that's a
exactly,
real hockey trade." It's not. It takes away fun for the fans. That
hundred
and
percent.
that's the bottom line. I mean, we have a salary cap, yet ticket prices go up every year. How do you figure?
But like even like trade deadlines and stuff like that, right? When is the last time we've had something that like look at the NFL that just happened, right? All the trades that are happening. You don't ever see that with NHL anymore. The biggest trade that we've seen recently was Kachuk and Huberdeau, an actual hockey deal, like a superstar for superstar. You
Yeah.
don't see that. It's just
They got to
little
be done.
peanuts
Well,
They
that
have
and,
to
was
and
be
done
done.
under
dumping,
that was
unloading.
that was done under duress too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree exactly what you're saying. I think like they need to be creative. They need to be smarter. Like even something as simple as allowing every team one buyout per year or something like that. Just something to alleviate this mess. Because keeping a guy like, for example, like Oliver Eckerd Larson in Vancouver, like that contract is going to be so bad for that team. The
It's
fans are
already
going to
bad.
hate him. But you know what I mean? Like
Gets
it's just a
worse and worse.
toxic. Yeah, it's going to be a
Well,
toxic
You
environment.
should just
well,
Fans
put.
maybe,
hate him,
You know what you
booing
should
maybe they
him.
do?
should.
Go,
What?
Dave. Go.
I say, why not put a franchise tag on one player that you've drafted and say, you know what?
Okay.
You drafted Matthews. You can pay him whatever the fuck you want, but it's a franchise tag, and that's it.
Isn't that what NFL does?
Yeah, why not? But why can't you do that?
I
was
know.
You know
Be
what?
creative.
I was gonna be
Think
more
Mixed
outside the
reality
creative.
is
box.
I
fine.
was gonna be more creative than that. I was just gonna put itching powder in his equipment every day,
Oh man,
Nice.
and then
Oh
jeez.
boy.
and then-
Hosa. Oh, poor guy.
They were talking about how what's the name, Johnny Hockey contract, when they looked like he was going to stay in Calgary, and then last minute he bolted for Columbus.
right.
They were so pissed off that they were not going to do any kind of tribute for this guy when he came back, because you usually do these video tributes and whatever. That's so pissed off they were, but I think they've changed their mind. They've kind of eased up on it. I guess because
Oh
they're
yeah.
happy with how everything turned out in the end. But
Exactly.
they were
Time
not. They
heals.
were not happy. He screwed them right at the end because last minute he was going to sign with Calgary and then he backed out. So a lot of interesting stuff going on in Calgary.
I'm just gonna go on record saying that I'm not one of the people that think that Calgary ended up better. Just again to reiterate my
I'm with
position.
you, Mike. I think we went through. I know they added Calgary after we initially discussed Vancouver and Calgary. How we thought
Yeah.
they were going down this wrong path, and Calgary's now all in. They better win this year or next year.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Rangers. Calgary's in that boat. They
I don't know if better is the right term. I think they compensated and they dealt with a really shitty situation. They did, right?
yeah.
They were presented a really bad situation, like just one after another of like kicking the nuts. And did they make the best of it? I think that's where you got a more like, can you imagine being in that situation? You're two studs, you're two stars that you're building this team around. You had a pretty great year. Obviously, they failed to the Oilers in the playoffs when it mattered. But okay, let's go back and we kick the can down the go and keep going for this. And what happens? Your guy Goudreau just like, okay, I'm out of here, peace. And now Kachuk's like, okay, I'm out of here too. Now you're sitting there looking at yourself, going, oh my God, we just went from this incredible season to
Yeah.
now we're screwed. So all things considering, I think they did well. I think they did well putting the pieces back together. Are they better than what they were with those two guys? I don't know. That's still
I don't
to
know.
the
be
thing.
determined.
But can you imagine? Okay, we were talking about Vancouver, how they were, what would you do with them? And look at these contracts they're stuck with. Technically, losing Goudreau, fine. They lost Goudreau, and it's too bad they lost him for nothing. But when you think about it, they were in a position where suddenly, okay, if we choose to rebuild now, we can get a boatload for Tkachuk. We can deal him where we want. He was still under contract, right? Okay, let's see.
Did he have
Either
one more
way,
year?
they controlled him. They could have dealt him anywhere. So technically, they could have rebuilt and grabbed a whole boatload of prospects or draft picks, whatever they wanted. They chose to go this route, and they're all in now. So they had that decision. Vancouver is in a different boat. So it's
Yeah.
two different. And when you look at that, it's apples and oranges because Calgary had a chance to go full rebuild, and they didn't. They could have even traded Markstrom and gone that route, but they've decided to go all in. So it's going to be interesting to see because I don't think Sutter's going to put up with losing at all. It's going to turn ugly there.
The only
Calgary
difference
is
between
weird.
Calgary and Vancouver, though, is Calgary actually has promising prospects coming up that could actually turn it around, whereas Vancouver doesn't have anything coming up. So that's kind of the only major difference between the two.
That's a good point. But again, prospects are prospects, right? Until
Yeah,
they
they're hit
develop.
or miss.
No, but I'm just saying in terms of we don't know. Like we always hear it in Toronto, all this guy's coming up, all these guys, and they end up being nothing. So
Hmm.
it's tough, man. Calgary decided to go all in. So they started off like a house on fire, but
Well, if
now it's-
anything, Kachuk is the one who screwed them more than Goudreau. Like Goudreau,
yeah. But
Goudreau.
Goudreau did say he was going to sign. Right, he
Well,
was right there. They
yeah,
were ready to sign.
but he's UFA. Like at
No,
some,
I'm just saying. But
yeah.
uh,
Anyway, if I'm a fan, I'm not blaming Kachuk. I'm not blaming the players. I'm sorry, but the GM is the guy that if you negotiate with a player and then the player decides that he wants out, hey, that tells you that the player didn't like what was going on. So, I mean, maybe it's the city, maybe it's the weather. I don't know, but and every player is different. You really got to know what motivates the player. If a player wants to win or not. And
yeah.
if you find out a guy doesn't want to win, then you maximize your return and get the guy out of town. Like
Exactly.
like I don't
I
know
think
if
they did great. I'm
yeah.
not a fan of Johnny Gaudreau. Like he doesn't do anything for me at
Oh,
all. I think he's
no.
overrated.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan either, but
I'm not a
Had
fan of
what,
him at
guys? He's
all.
had what, one good year? Like his last year was amazing.
no,
Why
he
was
was.
it?
Oh, he's had a
His
few good
contract
years.
here,
He's
right?
Yeah, but
he's
last year
on
I
a
think was
call,
his best year in terms of points. He had
no
an
doubt.
amazing
Yeah.
year last year.
Exactly.
He's over 100, I think, right? So
No, but so the comparisons is like, okay, you got Johnny Hockey and then Huberdeau, right? Like those are the ones. he- I think Huberdeau's the better player. Um, the problem is when you go against Kachuk and then Kadri, that's a total watch, right? But you can't really look at it like that because
they
I
got
think you
weaker
have to look at
too.
the big picture. There you go, right? You got Uyghur that just extended too. Like that's the other thing, the element of this whole trade scenario that we were talking about. They were able to extend all their guys. Like we, who thought? Like when they're first, I wish we can like put like a little clip of when we first originally talked about this. Nobody thought that they were going to be able to extend these guys, and everything was doom and gloom about these trades. They did it though. They did. They extended all these guys. They got them to long terms. Huberdeau and Uyghur, like good for them. You know, like good for and then plus they got the first round pick. No, and the kid. There was another kid that was traded with them. So there's still
They got
more
a
to this deal.
they got a first. I don't recall if they got a first.
Yeah, they got
Yeah, I think it was a first and I remember another name involved.
Cole
Is
They
it,
say
Cole
Florida has.
Schwint. Cole
Oh,
Schwint. What's that name?
there you go.
Yeah, how did
I'm
we
not sure. I
forget?
don't
How did we
remember the name.
forget that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? But so I think Calgary's still in a good situation. I don't know. Like I really, they are so strange. Exactly back
Mm.
what Dave was saying earlier. Like they came out incredible, but then they look so. I don't know. There's this thing that a lot of people say that when you're playing too many games at home, especially to start the season, you get a little too lax. You get too relaxed, and you're almost you need to get some jump back into your game. And they're now on the road, so now the boys can go out and party and bond and do whatever they got to do. And we'll see in the next coming weeks. I think again, Sutter is not going to take this line down. He's going to make sure these boys work hard.
yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
What the hell's going on with St. Louis? Because I mean, you guys, I've never been a fan, but I've heard you guys talk about St. Louis. So what's going on with those guys? What's happening?
It's like happens to many of the teams. Remember Los Angeles Kings and other teams that have had their run, right? These guys aren't young players. They're aging stars and they had their run. I think they played a lot of hockey in such a short period of time. And I think that's what you're seeing. I think they're just sort of going through the motions and you got to constantly recycle their talent. You can't keep the same guys always in the same positions. You got to bring in youth. You got to bring in guys that are hungry and want to win, or else that's what you're seeing. Like they look completely disinterested. I watched a little bit of that game. What was it, St. Louis, when they got schmurtled? Oh my God, what was it?
Well, against
A couple nights
Montreal?
ago.
There's one against
Yeah, and they're
Montreal.
just like, what were they doing? Like I don't know. Like it was Binghamton in net too to top it all off, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on over there, and they're
Well,
talking about firing the coach. Okay, like he's the guy that brought them to their championship. He's the guy who established their identity. You fire him, where are you going? Like what are you going to do with it? I don't know.
it look like just looking at their situation, it's not the worst situation because I think we talked a little bit about those players that they signed with Robert Thomas and Kairu. So those are the young players. Obviously, that's the future. They're 23, 24-year-old guys. But they got two players in Tarasenko and Ryan O'Reilly who
UFA.
who are UFAs. That's right.
Yeah,
And
Tarasenko's got to go for sure.
yeah.
Ryan
I could
O'Reilly's the
see
big
it.
one. They don't know if they're going to sign him or not.
Yeah, I think they're gonna
They
try
got
and
to be
keep
careful with
O'Reilly.
O'Reilly, though. They have to be careful because he's their guy, right? But at the same time, you
31.
give that guy 7 years and
Yeah.
7 million plus. Oh boy, you know what I mean?
Maybe if he takes a
Like,
hometown discount, I would consider signing him, but I would lean to trading this guy for the right return. Like that's the way I would
back to
lean.
Colorado.
Yeah,
Like
that's another.
that'd be beautiful.
That would be a good one. Yeah, that would be
Colorado,
a
that'd be
nice fit.
fitting perfectly.
Yeah. they would be able to eat half. He makes seven and a
Yep.
half now. Yeah, I've heard Colorado interested in a couple of names. They mentioned Sean Monahan today too,
Oh,
uh,
oh, that'd be perfect too.
from
Yeah.
Montreal. Yeah,
Same type of thing. Heart and soul guy, works hard. That's all you need. Colorado doesn't need much.
I don't know. St. Louis
Yeah.
has always been a weird team for me. I can't really figure them out. Like I like their younger players, so that's the future for me. When I look at the older guys, I'm like, okay, you got to make a decision now. Like that's what it's coming down to. If I'm the GM, if I'm going to play that game, if I'm the GM of the St. Louis Blues, I got to make a decision on these guys. Like I got to trade these guys. I'm not letting these guys walk. So, you know, I'm not saying to fire the coach. I probably wouldn't fire the coach only because like you said, Tomas, he won the cup, so he knows what it takes. And and if there's like sometimes, and I've said this before, Tarasenko has been asking for a trade for years now. Like I don't understand how that works
Yeah,
in
he has.
in the dressing room, right? Like
Yep.
how do you come to work every day saying that I went to go talk to the general manager and I wanted out, but I'm going to listen to my coach and I'm going to do the drills and I'm going to play the games. I'm going to get my goals. But I don't know, man. To me, I'm a weird breed, but I'm either all in or I'm out of here. You know, like if I go to the GM, if I've gone to that extent to talk to the GM to say trade my ass because I'm done with these guys, you're not going to get
I don't think I
100%
don't
from
think
me.
that's the situation though. I don't think he has anything against the players or the coach. I think he wants more money. He wants
No, but I heard
a different
he was
deal.
complaining that he was mismanaged, his injury. That's what I heard anyway.
Oh, that's a different story.
Well, that's what I'm
I don't
saying. Like
know.
this is going back a couple years now. So this deal, he's been making 7.5 for. I think it's been at least 2 years. He's been shopped around, or at least they said
Yeah.
we would do
Yep.
it,
Hmm.
but it needs to work for us. Which I get it. Like you're not going to make the move if you're not going to get the return. But the consequence of that cannot be ignored, is what I'm saying, right? Like if I'm the GM of this team, like this guy's going to be a problem. He is. He is a problem. Whether he's a
Oh,
vocal problem or it's like, he's just not giving 100%. And you're not going to win a cup
But
unless
that's
everyone
not the
is.
case, unfortunately, right? Because last year he played amazing.
He had a good
He had
year.
a great
Yeah,
year and he played in the playoffs amazing.
stat
And he
wise.
apparently from everyone, like I've heard nothing but good things about Tarasenko, and like he's not like this cancer in the dressing room or anything
It's
along
fair.
those
Yeah, it's a
lines.
fair
So
point.
I don't know. I
Well, we'll
think he's just
see.
being a pro. He's just being a good pro.
Not everybody can do that. I can fully admit that if I'm going to go to the GM, I wouldn't be able to do that. That's for sure. So I admire him for being able to put that aside and show up and play 100%. But either way, it's decision time for the St. Louis Blues. So these
Yep.
two guys are $7.5 million players, UFAs next year. Got to make a decision. That's the way it
You
works.
know what I'm wondering? I'm wondering if this is a Pat Burns situation, like with Berube, the way he coaches. Like that thing, the way that John Tortorella is another one, right? Like it's great when they can come in and switch a team around, right? It works because he can work his magic, tell everyone to work hard, put them into their system, get some structure into their game,
Hmm.
etc. But after a while, after 2, 3, 4 years, like the team just says, no, I don't feel like blocking a puck with my eyeball, like I'm done with this. It just you getting yelled at constantly and just I don't know. I like that. All these type of coaches, you can tell they always have a short lifespan, and
Hmm.
there's a reason for that, right? No one wants that micromanagement 24/7, and especially today's breed of hockey players. They don't want that. They want to be coddled. They want to have their time to play Call of Duty. It's a joke now. So I don't know. Maybe that also falls into place. Maybe the whole thing these players are kind of tuning out this coach because if that's the case, then you got to move on from him. You got to get some a new voice and get these guys to wake up a bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't count St. Louis out yet. I think that they're still going to turn around their season. I know it's a massive losing streak, but they've dealt with a little bit of injuries here and there with Bukanovich or whatever. He was out for a bit, and now
Close
he's
enough.
back.
we'll give it to you. We'll give you that one.
There you go. Um, and they got Kairu's got to get better. He's not been
He's
good
having a
this year.
horrible year.
He's having a horrible start to the year. Tarasenko's actually
Who's
been pretty
having a
good.
bad start? Caillou?
Kyrou, 4
Kyrou,
points.
Caillou.
Caillou?
Do you know there's only
Uh,
one guy on the team that, because I'm looking at their roster now, there's only one player that is a plus. That's
Oh,
it,
boy.
+1.
Well, they've been
Barb,
getting blown out, right? So that's
Oof.
gonna.
yeah. That one
And
guy's
and
Kyrou's -17.
Oh
Holy,
my
this is like
God.
Oh,
This is like Leafs in the 80s.
Wow.
-17.
that's hard to come back from.
That's quite a
Yeah. Oh,
number. That's quite a number. That's not an outlet. I mean, I usually the plus minus is a weird stat. I usually ignore it plus or minus
I
10.
don't. I do
Well,
not.
I ignore
Especially,
when I say let me finish. I
yeah, yeah.
ignore it plus or minus 10. Anything above that,
Oh,
I
okay.
start to look at it going, there's something to that. So that is one that would fall into that category for sure.
Oh, even like Ryan O'Reilly -12. Like, what's going on? That,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
I do equate plus minus as an important stat. I mean, looking back last year when everyone was saying there's something wrong with the Leafs second line, for instance, it was the Nylander line with Tavares and whoever else was on that line. I'm thinking, okay, they're all minus on this team, but yet so they're getting all their points on the power play. You know, it tells a lot when 5-on-5 that if you're in the minus, you're on for more goals. Obviously, it's not a good sign. It's just not. And when you see everyone in St. Louis as a minus, there's your reason why they're 3-9. What's their record? It's a horrible record.
Yeah. Speaking of the Leafs, that's a good
Oh,
segue to the last segment for tonight. And I mean, we'll let the Leafs fans go first, but the last time we spoke, we were
Giancarlo?
well, the last time we spoke, we were literally on the verge of, panic where they were playing Philly, they had beaten Philly, and then they were going to be going into a, torturous 3-game stretch and beyond, and we were worried about coaching jobs and everything. But what do you guys think, based on what we've seen after what occurred?
like a little short and sweet. We said it. We called it that they were going to pull a Leafs and they were going to win that weekend, and they did. Right? It's just part of their, their character. They show up when they want to. But start off the weekend, they played off Boston, and Boston, give the Leafs full credit. They played fantastic. They played their way, and they controlled the game, and they had a hell of a game. And that's what you want to see out of this team. They played a very good game against Boston. They pretty much controlled everything from the defensive area to offense. They never looked in trouble. They controlled the whole game, and it was good for them. The second game, against Carolina, Carolina dominated them the first half of the game. When you really see how Carolina plays, their structure and defensive system, much like the Leafs had nothing. They had no scoring chances. They had no room to breathe. They had nothing. They weren't able to do any stretch passes. They weren't able to do their cycle game. They had absolutely nothing going for them. But the thing about teams like Toronto, their offensive talent is that good that if they can get just that one sniff, that one scoring chance, they can beat you. And that's exactly what happened with the Leafs. They capitalized on their chances. They had maybe 2 or 3 actual real chances, and they put it in the back of the net, and that's it. Like, they, again, kudos to them. They found a way to win. It was an excellent road game for the Leafs because Carolina played their game. That's exactly what they want to do. They play that game all year round, the exact way, and they win for the most part. Leafs got lucky, and they did have a couple of chances, and they buried it. And good for them. They pulled out 2 more points against Vegas. Again, back to what hurts the Leafs, their inability to close off games, their inability to play defensive minded and use hockey IQ, that pay attention to what's going on the scoreboard and say, okay, we're down by this, or who's on the ice. Like, don't always think offense first, like
Yeah,
just
like
on the power play.
situational awareness, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, and that's the thing that's always going to stem from this team. They'll never learn. It's always the same guys. The same guy hurt them both times, and Morgan Riley and Giancarlo's clipped my rant on Morgan Riley many times and put it all over, so I'm not going to go again on him. But he hurt them both times, like both goals, the tying goal and the game-winning goal. He completely muffled. He was thinking offense, and he has no defensive ability whatsoever. Like nothing. He was a 2-on-1 on that on that power play, and they came at him, and he has no idea what to do. You either take the shooter, or you take the pass, one or the other, and he doesn't do either, and the puck's in the back of the net. And in overtime, Mitch Marner and Riley are in the back, and Mitchie's going forward, thinking, "Okay, we're going to break out." And Riley's already on his way out to up going for offense as well. Meanwhile, he's the only defender on the ice. What are you doing? Stay back. And of course, it cost him. He's pissed off. He's slamming his stick. But I'm sorry, Riley. Like at this point, you're just a joke. If you haven't learned from that by now, that you need to be more accountable for your own actions and play for the team and not just for the cookies. Like I don't know. I don't think anything is ever going to learn
I
from
saw that
from his mistakes
they separated the Wonder Twins up there.
for a game, and then they went right back to it. Right.
Really?
So
I
yeah,
didn't.
it was just
Oh
one
man,
game.
why would they do
It's
that?
just
They
a joke because the Sheldon Keith does not reward hard work. He rewards names on the back of the jersey,
man,
right?
Tavares looked happy. That's all I know. When he was
Right?
playing, he did.
And I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. I'm
They
tired
can't they
of
can't
beating
piss
this
off
dead horse.
Matthews. That's the thing.
Well, no, what happened was they moved Marner, and then the next morning, Paul Marner, Mitch Marner's father, called and yelled at Dubas, and then
What?
Dubas came
No,
down,
no,
and
you're joking.
Dubas
You're
yelled
joking.
at Keith, and he poured hot coffee on Sheldon Keith, and then Keith was like,
No,
"Okay,
no.
guys, sorry,
Marner.
I'll fix the situation."
He walked back his comments. He walked back the walk back. Yeah.
Paul
Yeah.
Marner is assistant GM of this team. Don't you guys know? Like he's part of the management group. Like he makes
What a
decisions.
joke.
So whatever. Who cares? Like you want your team to win. It's not want your stars to be happy. Like obviously
It's both, but yeah.
ideally you sort of like compromise and make everyone happy, but like it's so bad. Like just look at the power play. That tells you all you need to know about where the mentality of this team is. It's making your stars happy. Morgan Riley has no business being there, but he's there. Why? Because of the name on the back of his jersey. You know, even Tavares, he's making the most of it, but he's not ideal for a net front presence. He's not willing to step, to screen the goalie. He's not going to do that, but they do these little plays for him to make him part of the offense in the power play. I don't know. It just screams everything about this team is very entitled. All these guys are entitled, and the coach has to cater to these guys over and over again, and it's developed a really bad culture for this team.
I didn't watch much of Lisa Beyond. I actually watched a bit on Saturday, but we knew they were going to win Saturday. They were going to show up that game. It was one of those games where you knew they had to win versus a team like Boston at home, and they did. They did great. I mean, Sunday I was out, didn't watch any of it. I thought they were going to actually lose Sunday, but I heard they won. I was very surprised. I was more surprised with that one than the Boston one, to be honest with you. I had a feeling they would beat Boston.
I thought the
But
Boston
this
one
game,
is a good one
what,
because like that was, I mean, you're right.
playoff type game?
Yeah, it's a must-win game, right? And
Yeah.
I really did think that this was going to be there was a chance that this was going to be the end where we would see jerseys thrown on the ice on a Saturday night if it didn't go well. I smelled it. I could feel it that there was blood in the water. And I mean, good
No, I
kudos
didn't.
to
We didn't
them.
feel it. I don't think me and Tommaso did not feel that. I think we felt that more if they would have lost to Philly. I think they would have got ugly.
Okay.
But
Yeah, we'll see. But
you know
let's
what? To
focus a
me, I
little bit
saw
on the
the
news aspect too. I don't want to be too negative with them because
no,
just
no.
a little bit.
Listen, they got what 7 out of 8 points. Nothing
Hey,
wrong
full
with that.
marks, man. Like I said, that's a gutsy effort. They got
Yeah,
no
But
goaltending.
for
Like
me,
they lost
they're
their
still a
goalies.
small team, guys. They're still a small. They still get pushed around,
Yeah,
and
yep.
they will get pushed around.
we know their deficiencies. We've talked at
Yeah,
length about how they're built, and this is who they are. You can't change. Your GM is not going to change his mind now. This is who they
not.
are. So
He's not.
when it works, this is the result, and when April comes around, we will see, uh,
We'll see.
how effective it is.
I sent you guys
Exactly.
that image of we're like Charlie Brown and the Leafs are Lucy holding the football and we go kick it and they fucking move the football last second. That's
Yep.
what we are. I don't want to kick this time. I'm gonna stay back and just wait because there's no point. We've seen this movie too many times that to jump in and say this is the time, this is their year. Good news for you Malgin fans. That he might put him up in the top 6.
So right now with Malgin, he's playing on the third line with Kampf, and he's doing really well. Like the coach likes what he sees with that line, and that line has been playing very good hockey. So what the coach is saying, Sheldon Keith, is saying that if he continues to play this way, he'll be bumped up the lineup. You kind of like that idea, right? To actually reward players rather than just give someone like Kerfoot, who's continuously thrown in the top 6, meanwhile he's garbage. I don't know. That would be an ideal thing to do. But all credit to Malgin. He's playing well. Even besides the production, he's out there playing hard. You see him, like he's making a difference on the ice. So good for him if he gets an
Well,
opportunity.
I mean, I know we also make fun of Malgin, but if I got to take Malgin or Kerfoot, I'm taking Malgin 10 times out of 10. That's all I know.
Oh yeah.
Man,
Kerfoot
you
just
love
doesn't
Kerfoot.
belong, man.
So
I-
remind me to
Move him
put
already.
for Christmas. I'm gonna get Mike Malgin jersey.
Oh no!
Sorry,
nice.
Kerfoot jersey, and Giancarlo is gonna get a Ranger jersey.
Oh God.